And good morning, Hoosier Nation, and welcome to another exciting, a reignition of hope edition of Hoosier Morning After. This is Hoosier Morning After. Darian DeVris hire. Wow, guys, look at where we are. Look at the excitement. What a great way to wake up. What a better way to wake up than we have dealt with in the past. So exciting. So much great content out there now. Had to get on with you guys as well and talk about this great hire and maybe a little bit of look back, some of the stats, looking at his assistants and possibly what a roster situation is going to be. But what an interesting timing this has lent to be. Obviously, this past year ended kind of interestingly, knowing early that Woody was stepping down, and then just having the ignition of social media of who's it going to be, all the rumors, all the smoke, the hiring of a firm to help hire a new coach, and same kind of similar thing that we knew with the Cignetti hire, where things were very hush-hush. A lot of rumors going everywhere, people swinging for the fences with different coaches. When is it going to happen? End of the season. And then it suddenly drops on us. Really kind of a surprise and everything. And interesting to see the different takes we're getting from that and everything. Thank you for being here with us. I'm your host, Chad Schwarzkopf. With me always, Martha the Mop Lady, and special guest, fresh on spring break, got Coach Tonsoni with us here. I'll start off just saying my initial reaction was one, obviously, of excitement for me. I will say, because there's some friends that can attest to this, that when we were texting, kind of throwing back and forth who we liked and everything, and I'm not going to be Goodman on you and say, show receipts of, look at this text, I called it back then. But I was saying at that time that who I liked of the rumors and words that were going around was Coach DeVris, and excited. So that initial thing that happened was some excitement for me of who it was going to be. So it was wonderful to see, wonderful to be a part of, and everything like that. And so great to have Coach and everything like that, and figure out what the future is going to hold for this coaching staff. Coach, I'll throw it to you first. What were your kind of initial reactions when he was announced?
I don't. More excited once I started looking into him. The initial reaction was, okay, we have our coach, let's go. I was going to be excited no matter what, because I was ready for a change. And when you get someone with experience, so I too was, I guess I was excited, but once I dove in to, the reasons why and looking at stuff, and then the press conference really excited me, because he's done this before. He's turned around Drake, who wasn't very good prior to him being there. He did turn around West Virginia, who had struggled since Bob Huggins had left, and even when Bob Huggins was there for a while. But he turned those places around with his idea of coaching basketball. And then he comes from 20 years of being on the bench of two outstanding coaches in Dana Altman and Greg McDermott. So I just am very, very, very excited that it hit quick. So the initial one was, okay, we got our coach, let's go. And then the more I dug into it, and I'll share some of the things that I've heard from people, it's a lot of excitement now for this old guy.
Yeah. Martha, your kind of initial reaction.
Yeah, they echo a lot of coaches. This is sixth coaching search that we've been through since the Knight days. So those of us that have been around long enough to kind of have lived through those, have been through the ebbs and flows, and I think back to the Woody search, and that was a name out of left field. I think, at least for myself. And then, with Scott Dolson hiring Kirk Cignetti, another name that I think kind of popped up, was down the hot boards, if you will, and then kind of popped up at the list last minute. So I really tried not to dig deep into the message board rumors, the hot board rumors, because I didn't have a lot of faith in them. So I was just kind of letting this thing play out. And I've often said that I think the Indiana basketball coaching role, the job, it's a program that, if you're a ball coach, it should be pretty self-sustainable. You've got to have that mix of personality and the ability to coach ball, which I think we've had one and maybe not the other the last couple go rounds. And I really think Coach really think Coach DeVris gets it. I do, and I know it's easy to say you've won the press conference and you've won the resume, and obviously the proof will be in the pudding. My favorite comment, and I know we'll get into the press conference, that I heard him say, was essentially to, when you look at the revenue and the everything that comes along with the IU job, he essentially said that doesn't win games. Money doesn't win games. It's done on the court. And I think he said resources don't win games was the quote I read, and I'm like, that was like, be still my heart. Here we go. So I'm excited. I think he's a guy that's just a heady ball coach. His experience speaks to that. So was he at the top of my list? I don't know that I had a list. I just want a good ball coach in here, and I just want to get things done because I think that's been lacking. So I'm excited and ready to roll.
Yeah, that's a very healthy way to approach it. Obviously, having a list and being disappointed and everything. Obviously, when you saw the message boards and everything and what was going on, a lot of people wanted to swing for the fences for big ones, and I'm sure maybe Dolson did at some point. But I think we landed in the right spot and in a good spot for not only right now, but for future casting for IU. Speaking of some of his past and everything, what we are getting with Coach is a 71.3 win percentage. I did read an article earlier on. I wish I could give credit to the person that compiled this, but he brought the percentages of a lot of the current coaches that are out there and successful coaches that are out there in that same time period that Coach has been out there coaching right now, and he just has 4 coaches ahead of him in win percentage. Top of the list there is, not current coaches, obviously, because the top of the list is Brad Stevens at 77%. Then you got Tom Izzo at 76, Chris Beard at 73, and Shaka Smart at 72. So very good win percentage and everything there. Obviously, you see his recent past at West Virginia was 9-23 the previous year before he came in. He turned them around to a 19-3 this season, nearly with a new roster as well. They were picked to finish 13th in the in the Big 12, and ended up finishing 7th. I'm not going to depress you by saying what Indiana was predicted to finish and where they finally were at the end of this. But like Coach also said, it comes from a good pedigree and learned well from other guys, being an assistant under Danny Altman and Greg McDermott. And we really saw what that kind of offense is going to look like. And he said in the press conference that is what he is going to model his offense as well. And what he does with his offenses is a lot what he learned under Coach Greg. Was a good example that we saw in the Louisville game, where they took Louisville out. And also as well, just speaking of his wins as well, at Drake, before he was a coach, had one 20-win season in nearly 50 years. When Coach DeVris got in there, they were at least 20 wins. All 6 years that he was there, they averaged 25 wins. So overall, just kind of a good past from him. Any sort of coaching pedigree that you see from his past that you like, Coach?
Well, when you talk to people who have competed against him, and I've had a couple things relayed to me, a player in the Missouri Valley who competed against Coach DeVris at Drake said they were the toughest team to play. They were tough defensively. They did things right. It was one of the games that really was difficult for this guy to play. My son was a manager at Indiana State when Coach DeVris would come into town, and he had the opportunity to meet and see him at the shoot-arounds and all of that. And what Brent said was just an outstanding person, would shake everyone's hand going through the line, not just the coaches, the pregame handshake, but he'd say anyone in a polo, he would say good luck and say good things. And, there's again, we only know a short little bit about Coach DeVris. And so, you hear the people who were disappointed will say, oh, those are just words and all that. And there's some truth to that, but it's the plan. You mentioned it before we went on the air. He's done this. He's been around great coaches. Dana Altman wins in the postseason. I mean, he just does. His Oregon teams have gone further than anyone has thought, and Greg McDermott's ability to score the basketball. You saw that in the game yesterday with Creighton over Louisville, and just watching the highlights of guys taking some deep threes and hitting some deep threes off a variety of actions is quite good. So he has the college experience. The college game's different than the pro game, and that's something that I think some of us were concerned when we started the past regime, and it played out a little bit with a lot of the pro ideas of roster construction and everything else. His pedigree is some of the best coaches and then some of the best results that you just read out of turning things around under his own tutelage and operation of a program. That has to give us a level of excitement and hope that that'll continue at Indiana.
Any other for you, Martha? Any other things that stand out as far as his past and everything that you found?
Yeah, the carryover at Creighton. I mean, you're going from Dana Altman to Greg McDermott, and then Greg McDermott just speaking. He was kind of a carryover, right? And McDermott stated as much, but just for him to still speak as highly, and of DeVris as he did, being a carryover, and how long he was with Creighton, and the reason why he stayed, it was, he spoke very highly of that time and how embedded he was into that program and why leave a good thing. And I think he had some opportunities to leave and didn't, so I was really encouraged by what I heard Greg McDermott say, because I've got a lot of respect for him as a head coach. And then obviously his work at Drake speaks for itself, but like what he was able to do in the one season at West Virginia, turning them from, I think, 9-23 to 19-13 in one season. I mean, that's in this era of, and I don't know a lot about West Virginia's resources or what he was able to do in the portal. I find his assistant coaching lineup very interesting as it relates to Indiana. But that being said, I know he had some names that I've heard, obviously his son, and then some Illinois transfers on his team, but he's been able to do it both, at Drake, where he was at during kind of the evolution of college basketball, shifting from its traditional ways to, NIL through COVID and all that stuff, and managed that, and still was very successful, to being able to go to West Virginia, where it's a brand new ball game of transfer portal and NIL, and still have success. So he's been able to adjust and adapt to all of that and do it at the highest level. So I'm just really impressed by his one season at West Virginia, being able to carry that over from Drake. So I think that will bode well to being able to launch off on the right foot here at IU.
Yeah. We'll shift into obviously impressions on the press conference. You always talk about, is the coach going to win the press conference for you? Is he going to hit it out of the park? And honestly, for me, I'd say it was a win for me. I did like all the notes that he spoke on. He was one of the better things for me. He didn't speak in platitudes, and he didn't speak in social media sound bites. He wasn't looking for those things to say. Now, I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, but the other things that he said was really good. You could see that he's not a guy that likes to have to read from a script. His opening comments where he had to read from that, you could tell there was some uncomfortableness to him. But that all went away when he took questions and was able to just talk ball and talk his plan and everything. You saw a different body language out of him, a little bit more ease, a little bit more, was ready to talk. So that's a guy that loves the sport more than he loves the press conference. And he's okay in the press conference. He's going to be able to handle it. But he's really about ball and everything. Martha, I'll take it to you first. Your kind of thoughts on the press conference.
Yeah, it wasn't, we've seen it all, right? It's one of those things where, I remember, I thought Tom Crean and Tom Crean was great, but I thought he had one of the best press conferences I can remember in terms of like winning a press conference. And then, you go from that to an Archie Miller where, his personality is not going to blow anybody away. And Woody, loved him some Woody. I thought in his press conference was very confident. So, we've kind of seen it all, but like, I feel like you just have this gut feeling when it's a ball coach and a guy that gets it and gets, speaks to why he made that change and came to Indiana and what it means to him. And, I talked about the line that he said that resources don't win ball games. And I think he knows he's going to have all that at his disposal, but without without a culture, without, you think about Cignetti too, just, coming in and having a plan, right? And getting every second out of every day, coming in with a plan and working that plan. I think you're going to see a lot from Darren DeVris. So I'm excited about that. And I thought I liked a lot of what I heard from the press conference. It's nice to see President Witten there as well. And it just seems like she's been heavily involved in both the football search and now the basketball search. This search felt different in terms of what Dolson, we've heard a lot of the rumors that how much say did Scott Dolson have in the Woody hire. I think that's up for debate, but this felt like his decision, much like the football choice did. So I've got, that was a grand slam for him. So I've got a lot of confidence in this hire. And I thought he backed it up with what he said the other day in his press conference.
It was spoken a lot during that press conference, and Dolson said it as well about the alignment between departments, the alignment through the higher ups and Witten at the top of the university, down through the athletic department and down to the coaches. And hasn't been that in the past. There's been a lot of fight in the past, towards the end of Knight's career and all the way through up to where we are now, with how the university has fought athletics and everything. And it finally feels like and it's been said before, in a golden era of IU athletics overall. So that definitely was reassured in that press conference. Coach, your thoughts on the press conference?
Man, I took a page full of notes from President Witten to Dolson as I was sitting at my desk in my classroom, and just excited to hear the alignment, to hear him talk about how the CEO question, where he's, it takes everyone underneath him to be successful. And he mentioned managers and Dobos and all of those and the support staff. Like, again, the plan. I'll come back to your words, Chad. Everything was, here's what I've done in the past. Here's what's won. Here's what I'm going to do again. And it's collegiate. It's not something brand new coming in. That could have worked. It didn't, but it was really opposite of what we had under Coach Woodson. And again, not trying to throw any shade that direction today, because it's a new day. But he even said, I think, stuff like Coach Cignetti said, the process is the process, the standards are the standards. Like, feed that into my veins every day, right? It was my two sons and I were texting back and forth. Again, I'll be careful. You got to win, right? You got to put it on the floor in November and in the years to come. But it just was, there were so many good things about practice being quick and efficient from a basketball standpoint, right? And, I don't have, I was looking for my notes, and I must have left them on that desk at school because I'm on spring break to go over. But I just, it really enjoyed. I read the transcript like 3 or 4 times, but we'll just center it on the word plan. He has a plan, and he's going to execute that plan. And now it's for me to be reinvigorated in the coach of the university that I love and support, and to be fired up again. And I lost some of that passion with Coach Allen, reignited with Coach Cignetti, a Scott Dolson hire. I lost that passion, not a passion totally, but for the basketball program under Coach Woods, reignited with a Scott Dolson. So kudos to President Witten and Athletic Director Dolson for doing an incredible job and keeping everything secret. But I thought he said so much, and I know some basketball coaches that were underwhelmed a little bit when it was named, that after the press conference and after talking to people, totally turned around. And the comment was he spoke to people who understood basketball, right? So I don't know if the press conference was flashy enough for people who wanted the rah-rah, this is Indiana and that stuff. Some people might have been disappointed in that. But I know a lot of high school coaches right now are like really excited about what they heard from a basketball standpoint.
Yeah, overall, his plans, like we said, he has a plans for things, and some of that stuff he spoke on in the thing. He's obvious that he values defensive rebounds and limiting turnovers, and that goes back to who he was an assistant under. He's emphasizes about getting out in transition and getting a basket in those first 12 seconds and attacking broken defenses. And I have a quote here from the press conference that he said, when you get those stops and you get those rebounds, now we want to run. Our goal in every possession is to try and score in those first 12 seconds, because with the types of defenses you are going to see every night, you don't want to play against a set defense every possession. The more you can play against a broken defense, the better. And I think that was obviously well outlined, and huge shout out to Coach Adranya as well. Reached out to him to try to get him on to get him a little redemption for his mispronunciation during his film room. So if you watch that, he watched the press conference from West Virginia. That's where he got his pronunciation that was wrong. So it's not on him on that. But there was quotes like that were great to see. And then also just the way he talked about recruiting and how he's going to recruit, that he knows that he has those resources. We talked about that. The resources don't win games, but that when he goes at a player and builds a team, he's building a team. He's not building and just compiling talent. He's not going to go out there and just buy talent. If he gets a red flag, basically, it sounded like if he finds a red flag with a kid, then he's done. Whether he's number one in the country, if it's a red flag and it's not going to fit the pieces and be a cohesive team, he's not going to do it. And we saw the perfect epitaph of that this past year. IU compiled a lot of quality players and good players, and we struggled to put that together. We struggled to find how that fit together. And in the end of the season, yes, we did finally get a little bit of cohesion, but that cohesion was built on previous guys that we had stepping up and then parsing those in. Any other thoughts to your kind of game plans and things that I spoke on there, Coach?
Well, you hit on some of the biggest quotes. The broken floor one is basketball. Early offense is just good offense. The recruiting piece was important too, not cutting corners. I love that you brought that up, and I just think again that goes back to his organization and his plan and his seriousness about winning. And when you look at where he came from, Dana Altman's a winner, McDermott's a winner. He has been a winner. I'm not sure who was available on the wish list of anyone. As Martha said, we all kind of had the ideal candidate maybe inside our heads, but I too stayed off the discussion of rumor boards and everything. I thought all along we'd have to be at the tier of the Chris Collins, the Brunells, the Cronins, and then DeVris pops into that. I think that's the level where Indiana probably had to go in this hiring cycle. And I think when I look back at a lot of good coaches in that tier, I think that it shows. It shows with the comments that you mentioned there. And there were so many things that he said that just said he's going to hit the ground running. He's in the office working, obviously right now, probably watching this, it's high on his list.
Martha, any other thoughts to those specifics that he's going to bring?
No, and I like Coach, I want to be careful not to, I'll always respect Mike Woodson, and we've talked a lot about that, just the legend he'll always be for IU. So you try to go into this and not be too critical, but I think there's a lot of responsibility that comes with being, maybe unspoken responsibility that comes with being the head coach in Indiana, and part of that is to be a grinder. And you look at the state of Indiana and being present amongst high school coaches and having a good reputation amongst high school coaches. And are you recruiting anybody at the state championship? Maybe not, but should you be there? Probably, right? I mean, for a laundry list of reasons. The amount of AAU events that are in Indiana. There's a shaking hands and kissing babies part of the program that you just have to do. And I don't know that the previous staff always felt that was the highest and best use of their time. And I think relationships were affected by that. And I really think the new regime will probably get that a little bit better. And I bet that was a lot of the discussion, throughout the interview process. So I'm looking forward to him getting back out. As important as basketball is in this state at the high school level, you never want to have a bad relationship amongst high school coaches. And I don't know that it was bad with Mike Woodson. I just don't know that it was very present. And I think that's I think that's where I'm excited to see a change, just more present out in the recruiting field. I don't want to read stories where, oh, it's, coaches golfing, or, we saw and read it all, right? And I think you'll see something different there. So I'm looking forward to a completely different recruiting strategy. The resource should be, something they shouldn't come along with. They shouldn't lead you without the grind, right? You should use both hand in hand, go out and work. And you guys hit the nail on the head, right? Recruiting winners, recruiting personalities, recruiting families, all of that matters. You want to recruit winners, and I think that will bode well for what you're putting on the court next fall and winter. So I'm excited.
And obviously, Coach now has a lot of work ahead from him, not only building his roster and talking to the guys that are out there now, and we'll talk about that here in a second, but also kind of the first thing as well is getting his assistants together. There's obviously been talk about, does he bring some people over that he currently has? And there's some interesting connections to Indiana on that staff. Tom Ostrom being one of his assistants as well. There's been a lot of heat on social media talking about that right now. Obviously, an assistant under Archie Miller, but a very good assistant, an assistant that is very connected in Indiana and very respected when he was at IU in Indiana, was instrumental in getting Trace Jackson Davis to Indiana and things like that. There's other guys like Corey Barnett, who played for IU, was a walk-on from 2008 to 2012, was also on Steve Alford's staff at Nevada for 4 years, and everything, is from Rochester, Rochester, Indiana. Then you got Carvel Witter, which played for Coach DeVris when he was assistant at Creighton. Played some in college, after college in the G League, and a little bit overseas before coming a coach as well. Interesting stats on him. He holds the Creighton's record for consecutive free throws made at 32. So very interesting things. You could also go outside of there and look for assistants elsewhere. Your kind of thoughts on that assistant pool that he possibly brings with him, and who he could possibly find. I'll go to you first, Martha.
I think it's unique, and I think one thing that with Corey Barnett is people forget his dad, how important he is in the college basketball world. Mike Barnett and his association with, I think it's Adidas Nations, I think, or he's very high up in Adidas. And there was a list in 2019 or 2020 with the top 100 most influential people in college basketball, and his dad was on that list. Now, what association does that mean, or does it matter? I don't know, but you've got the Adidas connection in an Adidas school. West Virginia was a Nike school, so who knows what that will look like. Chester Frazier, I don't know if you mentioned him or not, but
no. It's a hot topic one.
That is a hot topic one. I'll let Coach talk on that a little bit more than I. But the only thing I remember from Chester Frazier is the Eric Gordon bump, and I always felt like he's had a huge disdain for Indiana. So that will be an interesting one to monitor. And then, of course, Tom Ostrom, who we know well, and I always thought he was, from a recruiting standpoint, always did a solid job for Archie. Always seemed to be in the mix with a lot of those. We didn't land a lot of those big guards we brought in, but you mentioned Trace, and he was always involved with some of those big names. And I've heard he was key behind some of the names that were committed to West Virginia. So it's going to be interesting. I think there's also the opportunity to prove upon that staff. I think he'll probably have, I'll use the word resources, to go out and add staff. I've heard some names mentioned from some other big time schools. So I don't think you'll see it mirror the West Virginia staff. I think you'll probably see him try to get, some better assistants. But I do find the Indiana connections that exist among the current West Virginia staff very interesting. So it'll be one to monitor.
Coach, your thoughts?
Yeah, I want to see Eric Gordon come back to practice when Chester Frazier is in a polo, IU polo, and I want to be there. I want to be there for that. Corey Barnett, the human victory cigar, right? When he got in, game was over, right? That's what they called him. And I have a pair of his game-worn jersey shorts here hanging on the wall. So I will be excited if Corey makes his way back to Indiana. I've heard that he's up for maybe some head coaching jobs somewhere. I have not verified that. So that's how those changes will happen. If some of those guys are getting their start at a smaller school or moving on in that direction and may not follow Coach DeVris here to Indiana. But guys, I'm at a point with what I've seen and what we've discussed so far in a moment of trust. And I think you don't necessarily have blind faith that everything's going to work out, but you also trust that it just seems like Witten and Dolson knew what was missing from Indiana basketball and went out and got the best candidate at this time to fill in. And because of my love affair for Indiana University and wanting that type of organization, and Coach DeVris is a part of that now, the huge part as the leader of the basketball program, I'm not going to get fired up about who could be the coach or who not. We're in that mode anyway in society where we're going to argue for 8 days about something we know absolutely zero about, right? Everyone's entitled to their opinion. It's a great country, free country, but I'm a trust Coach DeVris wants to come in here and turn this thing around, and he's going to organize a staff that he feels is best. And when that happens or doesn't happen, that's when the analysis should really come in.
Whatever happens with it, I look to see it happen obviously pretty quickly. With the portal opening up soon, he's going to want his assistants out there pounding the pavement, doing that kind of thing. Who gets carried over from the current staff? You never know. Excuse me, support wise and everything as well. The Chester thing, I think the way to win that over, if he's there when he's first announced, be it at Hoosier Hysteria or whatever, have Gordon come running out and bump into him and stuff, and then maybe a handshake and a hug out of them. That would be kind of a cool moment. I think next kind of thing to obviously discuss on that's going to happen and is going to be what is the roster going to be like. And it's going to be very interesting to see if there's other guys that go into the portal, albeit after some coach meetings, they're not convinced with it or they get nudged there. Sometimes that can happen. But it's very interesting. I think ones that pique my interest and would love to see, I would like to see Goody come back. Obviously, that's a tough hill to climb there because he does have to overcome the red shirt restrictions. He was out in time, but he did come back and play. He's going to have to get in a good attorney, as Galen has said, to possibly fight that through. But I think he could really thrive in an offense that from what I've seen, that coach is going to bring up, being a 3-point shooter and everything like that. And very mirrored and similar to his son. Obviously, his son, I think, is on a little bit higher level. Tucker, he's a 6'7" redshirt senior. Hasn't fully announced that he's coming to Indiana, but you can kind of read those tea leaves as he is in the portal on a no contact. Was 21.6 points per game average at Drake, and then was a 2-time Missouri Valley Conference Player of the Year, and last year was a tantalizing 47% from the field. You also have that is going to be there. Trent Sicily has announced that he is going to stay committed and everything and come in, and I think he's a good freshman coming in, whether he can be in fact impactful right away, but as a guy that could fit in a DeVris system as well. Your guys' thoughts on maybe the current roster and who you think could maybe fit and how that's going to rotate going through. Coach, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, I'm expecting heavy turnover. And I think Coach DeVris handled that very well. Either in the press conference or in one of the interviews afterwards, he said, they didn't come here to play for me and I didn't recruit them, and we have to be honest about that, right? And have conversations and see if it's a good fit. I thought that response in the press conference was fantastic. And so I expect some turnover, and the evaluation is, do any of the returning players fit the very thing that you said, Chad, about how they go about recruiting, and does it fit their formula? And if someone doesn't fit their formula, I think you're going to see a thanks for being here, but it might be best for you to go to the portal and find something else, because there's really no time in college basketball anymore to try to change someone's heart, mind, if it's not correct, right? It's difficult because it's a win now type of thing. So I'm expecting a lot of turnover. I think Goody will come back if he gets that waiver, and I think the big question for me is Miles Rice. I had a big, firm belief in his play, and he just struggled. Got off to a good start and then struggled. Kind of got a little bit of a momentum bump at the back end in his play. What he overcome in his life, I would love to see him come back and see what Coach DeVris can do in helping rebuild his confidence. And there are good things about every other player that is on Indiana's roster. The question is, does it fit, and can it, help a turnaround to get back to the tournament? And that's something that Coach DeVris and staff are going to have to answer. But I would expect that we're going to have 8 or 9, 10 new players and going to have to, fall in love with them quickly. And then he did say that he wants to build a combination of portal and 3 or 4 year guys, which I like to hear that. But he said that might take a couple years. First year, you got to go out and win. You got to go get your players. So I'm not saying more than Miles Rice, whether I want this guy or not want this guy. I think those sometimes are better left here in the man cave when we're not on video, just out of respect for their families. But Miles Rice is the one that I would like to see have a chance if it fits. If not, then I wish him nothing but the best, as with anyone who has left the program.
And he's known that he's good at turning that over and evaluating from an initial standpoint. Obviously, the way he quickly turned around the roster at West Virginia and only had 2 players, I think, returning on that West Virginia roster. Martha, your thoughts on the roster construction?
Yeah, I think gone are the days where Coach nailed it. Gone are the days where you're losing sleep about. We all lived through Tom Crean and having to play walk-ons and baseball players to get through the first couple seasons because of that turnover. And I think we all remember the Eli Holman potted plant incident and, the turnover that he was dealing with early in his tenure and how he had to manage that. It's different now. I mean, you don't really blink because, one, you expect turnover. Just with this era of college basketball and the transfer portal, I think Gabe Cupps is probably a guy who's going to transfer either way. So you kind of expect that, and especially when there's a coaching change, you expect to be on the giving end of that and the receiving end of that. I think we'll see a lot of good stuff come in. It's going to be interesting to monitor, but I'm with Coach. I'm not necessarily going to lose sleep over the expected large amount of turnover. It's a different regime for reasons because we struggled. Right. And you look at what Coach Signetti was able to do in the portal and the results he got in a year. And obviously basketball is a different situation, but, Coach is there's already a DePaul guard mentioned that played for him at Drake. There's already names popping up. And I think the advantage he's going to have is not playing in the tournament and being in his role already. He can hit the ground running in the portal. And there's going to be a lot of court time available at a place like Indiana. So I'm with you. I would like to see Luke Goody return. I have heard it's going to be an uphill battle with the NCAA, so hopefully he has Ken Nunn on retainer and help him navigate those legal waters. But I'd love to see him come back with his experience. And again, I think Coach Tonsoni hit the nail on the head when he used the word trust. Right? I'm not fretting about it. I'm eager. I want to see, but I've got complete trust that. Coach is going to go out and look what he did at West Virginia in year. If he can do it there, he's going to do it in Indiana and put together a competitive roster. And I love the fact that he mentioned building from the ground up at the high school level and making sure you're getting some of those 3 and 4 year guys in. Curt Signetti said the same thing. And he said the same thing. It might take a year or 2. We're going to have to hit the portal hard for the first couple of years, but we want to get guys we can develop as well. And that matters in this state. So I was excited to hear that, and I think it's going to be incredibly fun to watch. I'm eager. I'm already ready to see those names start popping up that may visit. But yeah, it's an exciting time, so I'm looking forward to it. But trust is the word for me.
Yeah, and I think if we can get Ken Nunn, if he can really work his magic, maybe Trey Galloway can get one more year. I'd really love to see Trey under this regime. I think he could. Always those what ifs.
Ken Nunn loves Indiana basketball, so he's a guy that will get it done for us. I will, fellas. I wanted to jump in and let you know that quick. I got to get my kid to school, but Coach, enjoy spring break. Chad, we'll stay in touch as always. Love you both, and
we'll see you, Martha.
Thank you, Martha.
Appreciate you. See you.
So getting close to the end there, and I will say on the Ken Nunn thing, I may or may not know someone that in the past on Halloween has gone and TP'd his house. I don't know. I may.
Hey, but the Luke Goody stuff is what a in a tough year with a lot of change. What a great contribution that young man made, as well as others on the team too. But there's a young man who grew up in the Candy Stripes, and what had to make a decision to go to Illinois. But then when he got his chance, he got to play in the Candy Stripes, and now he wants to play another year. If it meets the requirements and Ken Nunn can get it done, or whoever else lawyer can get it done, that kind of brought a lot of joy to a lot of the people who call themselves Indiana Hoosier fans at the end because of his hustle and his play and just all around play, and that's where the press conference, where the fit to win, because that hasn't been there, and just to be fair, it hasn't been there, and Luke Goody was the one leading the team huddles on the free throw line and all that kind of stuff in his first year. Luke Goody represents Indiana basketball, and the hope is that Coach DeVris will get a bunch of guys that wear that jersey with Indiana with as much pride as what Luke Goody did this year. And I just can't speak volumes for my respect for that young man. Would love to see him back for those reasons.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it there. And he's a guy that can carry over and continue the culture, like you said, like you're basically saying there of Indiana. And that's not to say that the culture without Goody is going to be lost on Coach DeVris, because what is Indiana culture? Indiana basketball and culture is what you see from him. That hustle, the kids that don't give up, that give the effort, that play good fundamental basketball. The fundamentals are going to be back. I mean, he has said in his practices that he doesn't over drill things. Again, very Signetti similar. They're not running long practices to just drill things. And his teams, as you watch the tape, are fundamentally good. It's good passing, good screening, good movement off the ball movement. Oh, what a joy that was to see in the highlights.
Please.
Oh, goodness gracious.
And yet, Chad, you know that in basketball now, it's a lot of middle ball screen. It's a lot of guys in the corner, but it's what you do with that. And again, it goes back to, I think it was Dolson who said, a high level coach. And I don't think that was a shot at anyone on the previous staff, but it was just a guy who can coach people up in the current modern basketball. And as much as I will complain about standing in the corner and spacing of the modern basketball of the dribble, you still need to coach it and at times put people on the move and do all those things. So I just really excited about what's going on.
Well, and along those lines that you said, and I'm not too embarrassed to admit it, but during the press conference, there was a moment where they went split screen and you saw some sideline action from Coach, and he's animated. He's up there. He's excited. There was a clip of one of his players was on the ground in a timeout or dead ball situation happened. He runs out and he's excited, pulling his guy up. Get me a little misty-eyed as a Hoosier fan to see that excitement of a coach in animation. And again, trying not to be knocking on Woody or trying not to be a downfall, but that's 100% different from what we saw before. A very stoic sideline before, and an additional assistant of a guy sitting there, and Coach Hill that I still don't know. Can anyone ever tell me? I'll offer a reward. What did Coach Hill do? I don't think we'll ever find out. But it's just, again, it's exciting, it's reigniting, it's all that kind of stuff. And I think we'll start to spin in circles if we drag it too much more. So I'll throw it to you for your kind of final thoughts.
Yeah, it's a new start. The Woodson regime had some success. It developed some players, sent some players to the pros, got to the NCAA tournament, beat Purdue. We cannot dismiss that there were some things that moved Indiana in the right direction, but there were also a lot of things that kind of bogged Indiana down and not making the tournament the last 2 years with talented rosters and resources, where I think a change was really necessary. And now we have something new. And when it's new, I think a lot of people will be excited. And I will always catch a lot of grief because of my excitement level of new coaches. I was a little wrong on Archie Miller. I was very excited about him, and that didn't turn out right. I was very lukewarm on Woodson, but I turned out to be right on that one, so I'm 50-50. I hope now I'm up to 2/3 correct with my excitement. And I also acknowledge those listeners that are a little tepid about this. You're entitled to that, and if you want to wait till you see it on the floor, I totally understand that's an option of an opinion as well, and fair. Because that's ultimately all of us have to wait till we see it, whether we're excited or not. But Chad, I thank you for getting my spring break started off in a good way, talking about Indiana basketball and talking with you and Martha. It's always a good way to start any day, but especially now when I have 11 days off, it's really good. And I'm excited about Indiana basketball again. I was watching Indiana basketball for the last year and a half, and now I'm excited about it again, and that to me is a lot better than where I was just a few months ago, a few weeks ago.
Yep. It's the hope that springs eternal, and the hope is back. It's reignited. It's exciting, and yeah, I will echo what Coach said there. You're welcome to be apprehensive. You're more than welcome to be underwhelmed by the hire and all that stuff, and have a stance of wait and see. I do just plead along with that is, be a quiet wait and see. Don't add to things on social media. Don't add to anything like that, because the coaching staff is going to have to hit the ground running and be out there and everything. And you don't want people that they're going to go after that don't know Hoosier Nation, that don't know what Indiana University is, that may tweet once they're kind of talking to University of Indiana. They don't know. They don't know yet. They aren't as passionate or maybe have not seen the things that we've seen. So we got to be good about that. We got to be good ambassadors as Hoosier Nation and everything like that. And let's step back. And if you want to wait and see, just wait and see. And if you're excited, be excited. That's a great way to be. That's a great way. Feed that positive energy. Feed that excited stance that you have. Because right now, obviously, a lot of the vitriol you'll see is coming from West Virginia fans. There's an even crazy lined out thread of conspiracy theory about when IU contacted him and everything like that. That's hilarious. And that is equally awesome. That can show you so much more why we got the right guy, possibly. Because if the previous place that he is at is so angry at him, has a nearly #1 sports podcaster in Pat McAfee calling him public enemy #1, we did it right. We got it right in this situation, because you don't want them going, thank you for taking him from us. Take him away. Do what you can. So, yeah. Again, as a lot of times on this show, I say the hope is back. The excitement is back, and I'm reignited. But previously, before this hire was announced, I was just sitting with bated breath, wondering who was going to get hired, and then, okay, when now is football? Now my brain is almost clicked back over to what we have had in the past, what we have done in the past as Hoosier Nation and basketball fans. We, at the end of the season in March, if we are not in the tournament, we're going, okay, how many more days until basketball? When does basketball start again? And we look past football. Now I'm not looking past football, but a little bit of those looking past football and when does basketball happen again has started to click back for me. And so I'm excited. I'm re-excited. I'm re-hopeful that Hoosier Nation is back. We're excited to get going. I'm excited to do this show, continue to have to do this, because it's been tough this season, guys. It's been tough to get on and talk about a lot of these games. But I thank you for being here with me. Thank you for Martha being here with me as always. And a big thank you for Coach Tonsoni to join us and everything like that. Hard to get him on as he is a busy man and a lot of times down there on those games, covering them for Assembly Call. So obviously check out our buddies at Assembly Call and Coach on Twitter as you can. Follow me on Twitter at General Chadwick. There you can find out more information about the show, when we're going to go live, and all that fun stuff. Martha is at the Mop Lady as well. We'll be back again maybe in the middle of the season to react about a few things that happen and everything like that. But if not, it's going to be a little bit of time off. So we'll see you when the new season kicks off and a new era for college basketball for IU. Until then, go out there, have a wonderful day. And as always, let's go Hoosiers.